We're all swimming in an invisible ocean, a constant storm of radio signals that literally powers our modern world. Today, we're going to learn how to see it, how to make sense of it, and maybe the best part, how to do it without spending a ton of money. Just think about that for a second. What if you could pull out a little device and actually see the radio waves connecting your phone, your car, even drones flying right over your head? Well, this isn't science fiction anymore, and the tools to do it are way more accessible than you think. Let's face it, we live in a radio frequency world now. Everything from your Bluetooth headphones to your wireless mouse is just constantly chatting away, broadcasting signals. Your phone, yeah, it can see Wi-Fi and Bluetooth, but that is just a tiny, tiny sliver of what's actually out there. And all that chatter, it's not just noise, it's information. So here's our game plan. First, we're going to talk about this invisible wireless world we live in. Then we'll get into the magic that lets us see it all. We'll check out 3 really powerful tools, starting with one that's super affordable. And we'll wrap up by talking about why this skill is becoming so incredibly important. Our phones give us information, right? Like it tells us the name of a Wi-Fi network. But what happens when you start piecing those little bits of information together? Well, that's when it stops being just data and it becomes intelligence. Here's a perfect example. At a recent trade show, people were handed badges that had little Bluetooth trackers inside. A simple app on a phone could then look around and see exactly how many of those trackers were in, say, a restaurant nearby. See? That's not just data anymore. That's real, actionable intelligence about where crowds are moving, and you gathered it with a device that's already in your pocket. Okay, but to see beyond just the basics, like Bluetooth and Wi-Fi, we're going to need a different kind of tool. Something that can crack open the entire radio frequency spectrum and put the power of analysis right in our hands. And this is where something called software-defined radio, or SDR, comes into play. This whole field has a name. It's called signals intelligence, or SIGINT for short. It's basically the art of turning radio signals into useful knowledge about what's going on around you. And SDR, well, that's the key that unlocks this entire world for pretty much everybody. Let me put it this way. Think about an old car radio. It's kind of like looking at the world through a tiny pinhole. You can only hear one station at a time, right? Well, a software-defined radio is like a full-color panoramic camera. It sees this massive, wide view of the radio spectrum all at once, which lets you zero in on specific things without ever losing that big picture. So, where do you even start? Let's talk about the humble entry point into this whole universe, the RTL-SDR. This tiny little USB stick is basically your first step to becoming a signals detective. And get this, it costs about $40. For around $40, you get a device that plugs right into your laptop and gives you what feel like superpowers. This incredibly low price has completely opened up the world of signals intelligence to everyone. And when you pair this little dongle with some free software, it can show you a massive chunk of the radio spectrum. You can set up multiple digital receivers and listen to a bunch of different conversations all at the same time. And you can even send that audio to other programs for analysis. It's a frankly incredible amount of power for such a small investment. Okay, the RTL-SDR is amazing for your desk, but what if you need something you can take out in the field? Well, the next step up is the Tiny SA Ultra, which is a true pocket-sized powerhouse. This thing is completely self-contained. It's got an 8-hour battery, a little screen, and this is key. It can see much higher up the frequency spectrum. It gets you right into the bands used by Wi-Fi and most consumer drones, which is one of the main limitations of that cheaper RTL-SDR. So what can you actually do with this? Well, you can immediately spot a drone operating nearby just by looking for its control signals. And more critically, you can detect signal jammers. Criminals sometimes use these to block 911 calls during a robbery. On a device like this, a jammer just lights up like an unmistakable, giant wall of noise. All right, our last tool is the HackRF. And this device, this is a whole other level. It's not just about seeing the spectrum anymore. It's about understanding and even interacting with it. This is the leap from just passively listening to actively analyzing. The huge difference here is that the HackRF, especially with this PortaPack add-on, has its own brain. It doesn't just show you a signal, it can automatically figure out and decode what that signal is, turning those raw radio waves into organized data. Oh, and it can also transmit signals, which is a massive step up. For instance, the HackRF can just listen for the transponder signals that all modern airplanes are constantly broadcasting. But instead of just showing you a little blip on a graph, it decodes that signal and tells you the plane's flight ID, its altitude, its speed, its heading, all in real time. It's literally like having your own personal air traffic control tower in your hand. And this quote really just sums it all up perfectly. Back in the day, to do this kind of work, you would have needed a massive stack of expensive, specialized hardware. Now, a single device plugged into a computer, or in the HackerF's case, held in your hand, can do all of it. So we've seen these amazing tools, but let's just zoom out for a second. Why is learning this skill becoming so important? Well, it's because the world we live in is fundamentally changing. Every single year, more and more of our critical infrastructure, our communication, our daily lives, it all goes wireless. Understanding this invisible environment, being able to see what's actually happening in the radio spectrum all around you, it's shifting from being just a fun hobby to a truly crucial skill for modern awareness and preparedness. And you know the best part of all this? You don't even have to buy anything to get your feet wet. You can start exploring this world of radio this very second from the computer you're on right now. All you have to do is search online for Kiwi SDR. You'll find a map of hobbyists all over the globe who are sharing their SDRs over the internet for free. You can click on a receiver in London or Finland or Tennessee and just start exploring the radio spectrum live from that location. It's an absolutely amazing way to see what's out there and learn how this all works. So we've shown you the tools, we've shown you the techniques to pull back the curtain on this invisible world that is all around us all the time. The power to see and to understand these signals is more accessible right now than it has ever been. So the only real question left is, what will you choose to see?